Janabandha Girivardhari Gopi Janabandha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamanatiravanachari Jamanatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabandha Girivardhari Gopi Janabandha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamanatiravanachari Jamanatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pariviragacharya Astatara Sattasi Simaris Divine Grace Isi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premanandi. Knowing what the topic was, as I was singing Jai Radhabha, I was looking around the room, noting different ordeals that I know, different devotees, because of close relationship, have passed through or are passing through. This is a continuation of our message from earlier today. This message of deep down inside what's really important, and if it's really important to you, in different degrees it's important to all of us. If it's deeply important to you to be re-established in your relationship with Krishna, sometimes that gets tested. And one of the ways that gets tested is this expression, fire of ordeal, it's an expression of Bhakti Siddhanta that's coming from one of the verses of Brahma Samhita, which we'll recite together, please. Yastvindra gopam atavindram aho svakarma bandhana ropa palabhajanam atanoti karmani nirdahitu kintacha bhakti bhajam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. The translation reads, I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who burns up to their roots all fruitive activities of those who are imbued with devotion. Burns up to the roots. That's the fire of ordeal part. All fruitive activities of those who are imbued with devotion, and impartially ordains for each the due enjoyment of the fruits of one's activities, of all those who walk the path of work, karmakanda, in accordance with the chain of their previously performed works, no less in the case of the tiny insect that bears the name Indragopa than in that of Indra, the king of the Devas. We're trying to become devotees. We're all spirit souls by nature, by our constitutional position. We are meant for, it's who we are. We're meant for eternal service to the eternal object of service with love. Krishna Bhakti. Krishna Bhakti is our natural position. We just have a different idea. We've been having a different idea for a long time. How many lifetimes? Who can say? Too many to count. Too many, we don't care to count them. Too many times. Too many lifetimes. And that situation of being forgetful of that object of loving service, the object, we're the subject, he's the object in the loving relationship. Ashraya Vishaya, he is the object of our love. And in the purified stage, the heart is the abode of that love. And we're meant for that. But somehow, this yadrichchaya word, remember that one? Somehow or other. Notice, as you're reading Prabhupada's books, how often he'll speak like that, or use that phrase, somehow or other. We've come to this condition. He doesn't so much detail it, although some places he does, somehow or other. So, misuse of free will. Somehow or other. We misused our free will, and here we are. And instead of Krishna is the object, Vishaya, to be loved and worshipped and served by our serving propensity, we find some other entities, some other objects to serve. And that, in essence, is called Maya. Ma-ya. That which is not. We serve that which is not, instead of serving Krishna. And that's from those that took part in the Festival of the Holy Name or any one of the japa retreats. That's the jaundice of avidya. Remember that one? From Nectar of Instruction, text number 7. Just as rock candy or misri or sita in the Sanskrit term is sweet, so also the holy name is sweet. But when one has the disease of jaundice, that which is sweet, you can't taste sweet, it tastes bitter. But just as jaundice is cured, the disease of jaundice is cured by rock candy, so also the holy name has the potency to remove the jaundice effect, that is avidya effect, that which is spiritual we don't see as spiritual. That which is the object to be served we don't see as the object to be served. We see maybe as our order supplier, he's to serve us. Om Jai Jagadisha Hare. You all know this one from India, especially our older generation. A nice song. I want this and I want that and I want the other thing. Om Jaya Jagadisha. Bhakti Chaitanya Swami has a little, I want a house and a color TV and a house by the sea. Om Jai Jagadisha Hare. Our order supplier. And our founder Acharya and the previous Acharyas teach us we shouldn't see God as the order supplier, we should try to be in service to Him, although He needs nothing. And that mood of changing the object from avidya, the ignorance that covers the living entity, to remove that ignorance and serve the real object, that's the paradigm shift that I've been using this iceberg example to show. And it requires some work. I call it Brahminical work, and introspection, not what somebody wants you to feel, but what you feel deep inside you. We're trying to reawaken that feeling, that spirit of loving service to Krishna, being in our relationship with that loving Krishna. Now that relationship of loving Krishna can be tested. And some of you have heard me say this, I'll say it again, it's nice. In New York, hearing Srila Prabhupada describe this principle, when you start to wake up and say, Krishna, I want to be engaged in your loving service. I wish to Sharana Agati, I wish to come to that stage where you're everything to me. Please accept me. I turned away from your service. I went into some place of darkness and found other servants, the masters of avidya, of ignorance, and I become a slave to ignorance for too many lifetimes with any master but you. Or maybe thinking I have another master, but actually you're my order supplier, not my master. I want to come to you. So he didn't say all of that, but Krishna, I am yours, please accept me. So Krishna will say, oh, do you really want me? What about some sense gratification, And Prabhupada went like this. The devotee will say, no. I only want you. And Krishna will say, oh, maybe he really wants me. What about some difficulty? What about some tribulation? Do you still want me? Na dhanam, na janam, na sun. So you can do with me whatever you like. You can embrace me, you can trample me, you can neglect me. You can do with me whatever you like. Please just engage me in your service. Oh, he really wants me. Then let me give myself to him. I am yours. And so as the devotee says, Krishna, I am yours, Krishna says to such a devotee, same, I am yours. You can do with me what you like. And he doesn't, no. By nature, Krishna is kind. Krishna is very kind. So how to see the fire of ordeal as Krishna's kindness? Nice to talk about notionally. It does make sense spiritually. But then what to do when it happens? To go beyond notional. This fire of ordeal phrase is in Bhaktisiddhanta's purports to this verse. Here's the first part. God impartially induces the fallen souls to act in the way that is consequent on the deeds of their previous births and to enjoy the fruits of their labors. But, now this part, out of his great mercy to his devotees, he purges out by the fire of ordeal, the root of all karma, namely nescience, avidya, and evil desires. So supposing trying to become devotees, and there are certain things that as we have begun the process of bhakti, we were able to let go of quite easily, nescience things, avidya things. Maybe it's our diet. We became vegetarian if we weren't already vegetarian. And other things. We rise early, perform Mangal Arati, chant mantra. I mean, it's not, but we're making instead of hearing and chanting about other things, we're hearing and chanting about devotional things. So there's some behavior changes and we leave some other things behind. But just supposing there's some things that it's hard for us to leave behind. We have our favorite attachments. Just supposing. And there are obstacles to come to the stage of unalloyed devotion to Krishna because we're attached to asat. It's an ignorance. And from that ignorance, that nescience, and from nescience comes ignorant desire. The root cause of suffering is ignorance, and from ignorance comes ignorant desire. And from ignorant desire comes ignorant activity, comes suffering. So Krishna wants to relieve us of suffering, but we're attached to the sources of our suffering. We're not attached to the suffering, we're attached to the sources of our misery. So when that occurs, Krishna is very kind. Not always, but sometimes he'll purge out the very root of all good and bad karma, which is nescience. Nescience is the path of good karma, the path of bad karma, and the path of desire that's not fully connected to the pleasure of Krishna. So sometimes there's an ordeal. And then that's where we get tested. Of course, you can get tested. We discussed this in the morning session. I said I would expand on it more this evening, and that's what I'm attempting to do. We also get tested when good things come. Good fortune, ill fortune. When good fortune comes, it's also a test. What about a little sense gratification? So when things come, what is our Bhagavatam teaching? Very early in chapter 2 of Canto 1. Dharmasi apavargasya nartotayopakalpate. Dharma, good activity, good karma activity, is not to be done for any other purpose than ultimate liberation. Because many people, not many people, according to Bhagavad Gita, and take a look at different scriptures, the theistic conduct that's recommended has a carrot, has a purpose. Enjoy, gain pious merit, enjoy the fruits of that piety in this life, and enjoy in heaven after this life. The happiness of a life of goodness. It's not one tradition specific. It's not from India or the Christian tradition or the Muslim tradition. Those that are not really clear about what Buddhism is, they have the same idea. For the benefit of Vraja. You'll have to translate for her afterwards. Okay? One of my visits to China, I was introduced to a Chinese millionaire, Buddhist lady. They had the local terminology. She was a diamond person. Diamond meant, I was told later, that in the course of 1 year, this lady earned net $1 million. Now, some people earn multi-millions in 1 year, but she was a diamond. And her friend was a Hare Krishna devotee. So the Hare Krishna devotee told me that this millionaire lady wanted to meet me, her teacher, because in China, there's culture that, teacher, guru, whatever the language is in Chinese, I don't know, but that person is held in special regard. So she wanted to meet me. So there was an arrangement to meet. It was in some lobby of a 5-star hotel or something like that. And I was curious, why do you want to meet me? Like, what's your expectation from me? And she said what her expectation was. I find happiness, the highest happiness I know is being able to help other people, compassion. And one of the ways that it enables me to be in that position, to be compassionate, is to be wealthy, because then I can give in charity. Then she gave an example of some she just had finished giving X amount, along with some other diamond ladies, to some orphanage. And she explained, interestingly, I mean, through her translator, that those who give charity know, as soon as you go to the person who you're giving charity, they're going to, while you're giving them the charity, they're asking for more. So they had a boundary, no more, that's it. We're giving this charity, that's it. Like, our happiness has a boundary, and that's it. Although we have the capacity to do more, we just like, we don't want to spoil that happiness by them wanting more. So my sense of what enabled us, Diamond Ladies, to get to the place, or Diamond People, to get to the place where there's an intelligence that guides us. And I understand you're my friend's teacher, so you probably, my expectation is you can help me connect with that intelligence so that I can find happiness in being, again, further charitable to others. The happiness of mode of goodness. It's Bhagavad Gita. Happiness in the mode of goodness. And one becomes conditioned by that sense of happiness in the mode of goodness, according to Bhagavad Gita. So she wanted me to help her get some good karma so she could get the good karma happiness of being a charitable person. I tried gently for about 40 minutes, and then she put a full stop. Where's intelligence come from? Tried to get her to look at the source of intelligence as a person. She looked me in the eye and said, "Don't try to take me to a place where I have to be subordinate to anybody." So I said, "Okay, you have any children?" "Yes, I have a daughter." "Do you love your daughter, and does your daughter love you?" "Yes, of course." She looked at her friend saying, "Why is he asking me this?" So when you do something for your daughter, do you have the expectation that your daughter is going to do something back? Or do you just find happiness in doing for your daughter? I find happiness in doing for my daughter. And so the nature of love, I tried a different channel. You're getting intelligence. What about, say, the sense of gratitude that your daughter has, not just the stuff that you give her, but the love that you give her? How do you feel when she expresses her gratitude for the love that you give her? So she didn't want to go there. The intelligence that gives her the ability to become a millionairess so she can get the happiness of charity. She just, she wanted, piety and the fruits of piety, and then go to the good place. And there's nothing more. It's right in Bhagavad Gita. Most people think that way, and it's true, most people think that way. It doesn't matter. So what's beyond good karma? What's beyond mode of goodness, happiness? Well, we're trying to be devotees, and Krishna is helping us to become devotees because we're sincere. We want to be His devotees. So sometimes we're attached, and sometimes He'll test us. And when those tests come, when you say, "My dear Lord Krishna," and you say it with some sincerity, "You can do with me whatever you like. I'm your devotee. I'm aspiring to become your devotee, your unalloyed devotee." And then Krishna starts taking some things away that you're holding on to, that you're attached to, nescience. And you go, "Ouch." Or you may not say it, but you feel it, because you're attached to that source of misery. Sometimes it happens. That's the fire of ordeal. So I want to, in addition to this statement of Bhaktisiddhanta, expand, because he didn't just say it in Brahma Samhita, or not only Lord Brahma says it and he gave this purport. Out of his great mercy to his devotees, he purges out by the fire of ordeal the root, our affinity for avidya, our affinity for the enjoyer of the temporary. So here's some other, in Dhaka, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was visiting in Dhaka. many times. One time he spent a whole month speaking on one verse, same verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 1:1:1 Bhagavatam. And these are taken from that 1 month that he spent in Dhaka. Those favored by God find their paths set by thorns. Now, doesn't give the rest of what he said in connection to that. But when the thorns go into your foot, I don't know, it's not so common you say, "Oh, thank you, Krishna. You're so kind." Now, how many here have done Govardhan Parikrama barefoot? Many. And it used to be, there's an outer path and an inner path, and the inner path had thorn bushes, and there was a certain patch that it was, at least those that regularly would do the Govardhan Parikrama, knew there were thorns. So I was told by somebody that was with us, beware of thorns, and sure enough, I stepped on a thorn, and it hurt. And the devotee said, "Oh, you're serving the other Vaishnavas because by taking the thorn in your foot, you're enabling them to not have to step on the thorn themselves." And I said, "Thanks a lot." And I was a little concerned because I know of another devotee who got a cut on his foot on the Vrindavan Parikrama path, not the Govardhan Parikrama path, and he just ignored it, and his foot got infected, and before he left India, which was maybe 10 days after that happened, he had to be flown back in an emergency. He was in the hospital for a month because that little cut, something got inside his foot, and that something that got inside his foot swelled up his lower leg at least 3 times what it normally was. It wasn't just a minor infection. Whatever it was nasty, and he was in the hospital for a month. So that had happened, when I got this little thorn in my foot. And I was thinking, I got an opportunity to serve the Vaishnavas so they wouldn't get the thorn in their foot, but I want to make sure I don't have elephantitis before I leave Vrindavan. So I have to take some medical care. So you take precaution, but when you're doing service for others in this world and some adversity comes your way, Krishna is being very kind. It's not that Krishna stops being kind. Even you get the thorn in your foot, or the mercy of those favored by God find their paths set by thorns. But you certainly can choose how to respond to that mercy. You may get some medical treatment. You may there may be all kinds of things that you do in response, in service to Krishna. Now, ordeals aren't always thorns in your foot. Ordeals can be other persons. I'm thinking, as I was chanting Jai Radha Madhava, persons who are in situations in their lives where there's ordeal because of other persons. Other persons are interacting with you or someone dear to you in a way that's hostile or harsh or unfair, unjust. It happens. Bhaktisiddhanta. Let me not desire anything but the highest good for my worst enemies. Of course, Prahlad Maharaj says, don't think friends, enemies at all. If you don't see friends, enemies, how do you see when someone is acting hostile? Prahlad details it and says you should see them, they're Krishna's servants. Now, Krishna's servants may be not acting favorable to Krishna, but may be part of the fire of ordeal that Krishna is sending your way, that you're not tuned into. You don't have your Krishna channel tuned in so well. So it comes across like really staticky. Oh. You don't hear the Krishna channel so well. There's a couple of examples that are not devotee examples, but one of them happened not this past summer, but the summer before last. In the Amish community, there was a murder. Somebody passing by in a car, pulled out a gun, shot one of the teenage girls, dead, and drove off. Their immediate response as a community, they went together to their place of worship and prayed to God for the forgiveness of that murderer. It made the news. It wasn't just, you know, the mother and father. It was the community. It's their conviction. You wish the best for your greatest enemy. There's a Vaishnava, the very nice Vaishnava example of this. Jayadev Goswami, some of you may know the story. Jayadev was a householder, and he had a deity, and his deity wanted to have a nice festival for his deity. So he took leave from his deity and his wife to go on a tour speaking Gita Govinda, because he knew, and singing. And when he would recite, people would give donations, but he didn't use the donation for himself, but the plan was to use what he had for a festival for his deity. But towards the end of that tour, some robbers attacked him. Not only they attacked him and stole his money, but they threw him in the bottom of a well and left. He wasn't dead, he's just at the bottom of a well. One king came along one day to get some water and found this person at the bottom of the well, and he rescued him, and he brought him back to revive him in his palace. And it was Jayadev, and Jayadev, being very appreciative of the king, started, for the pleasure of the king and the king's court, reciting Gita Govinda. And so the king realized, wow, this was a saintly person. So he arranged for a big festival in his palace and invited all the brahmanas to hear him come and sing Gita Govinda. And when the brahmanas assembled, in the assembly were the dacoits dressed as brahmanas. And Jayadev recognized them. And Jayadev was looking at them, and they thought, uh-oh, an attempted murder and robbery. Then Jayadev leaned over to the king and told the king, before these, when it comes to giving distribution of charity, make sure you give special charity to those four over there. So when he saw they're being pointed out, they got up and ran. And the king sent his soldiers or ministers or representatives of some kind to pursue them, to make sure they got their charity. And they thought they were being pursued for, you know, to be arrested for attempted murder and robbery. When the constables caught up to them, they said these bad things about Jayadev. Well, we left. Why did you leave? We left because, I forget what it was that they said, something bad about Jayadev. He's a bad person. So we didn't want to be in his presence because he's a bad person. And the earth opened up and they disappeared into the earth. The constables came back and reported this to the king. The king then asked Jayadev, why was it you singled these people out? And then Jayadev disclosed. They were the ones that robbed me and threw me in the bottom of the well. And the king said, well, then why did you want some special charity be given to them? He said, because they're so impoverished. If they have the means to take care of their impoverishment, then they'll be pacified. He was just wishing them well, although they was attempted murderers. The king was astonished and understood it's not just he sings nicely, but let me not desire anything but the highest good for my worst enemies, for those who are... So how do you respond when there's adversity that comes your way? The agent is a person or a group of persons. It happens sometimes. Here's another one. This is not a devotee situation. This is in South Africa during the apartheid Truth and Reconciliation. Some of you may know what that means. The African American indigenous people had an opportunity in a formal setting, in a courtroom, to be brought before the persons who had done harm to them. And once it was demonstrated that they in fact had done some evil deed to someone, an African American indigenous person, they could decide what would be their fate or destiny. So there's a really famous one, probably many. One lady was meeting the person, without all the details because I don't remember all the details so well, but the person was the instrument to kill her husband and then later do some harm to her son. I forget exactly, maybe also kill her son. Oh, lawlessness and power in the hands of people who are corrupt can be very dangerous. So she was given the opportunity to decide his destiny. And she asked for 3 things. I can't remember all 3. One of them was she requested the man, the murderer of her husband, to show where the place of the murder was so that she could go there and perform a proper religious funeral for her father, of her husband. And a second one was that he would come and visit her once a week or once every other week or something like that, because now she also had no son. So since the man had taken her son, he could come to see her in the mood of being a son, and she could be the mother to him because she was an elder lady and the man was, you know, younger than her, the age of her son. So since he's taken the life of my son, he can come and see me and I can give my affection to him as a mother to a son. And I forget what the third thing was equally amazing. And the man burst out in tears. And he fulfilled her request. He was transformed, not just because I got off easy, but he understood the heart of this woman. So it's not easy to do like that. So it's not tradition specific, it's principle specific. Sometimes ordeals come. Sometimes ordeals come to us as an individual. In the case of the African population in South Africa, and it's not stopped. Now that it's over, it's not over. It still goes on. Racial discrimination still goes on because people are in the bodily conception of life. That didn't stop. They look very beautiful, don't they? So what to do? It's not just, there's a dimension of tolerance. I'm going to speak on that next. I'll speak on that next. There's another, for me at least, a very significant scriptural reference. This Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj was also tested by Vamana. Vamana wanted to show, he says later, he wanted to show the superlative bhakti of Bali Maharaj. And to do that, even after he surrendered everything, Atmanivedana, he gave everything. He had him tied like a criminal, bound like a common criminal. And there was this big, hey, that's not fair. And then here's the verse, Canto 8. You want to look it up later. Chapter 22, text 28. A devotee is sometimes put into adversity while executing devotional service. In adversity, everyone laments and becomes aggrieved. But by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a devotee, even in the worst condition, can understand he is undergoing a severe examination by the Personality of Godhead. Bali Maharaj passed all such examinations as explained in the following verses. So this is Shukadeva Goswami narrating, here's the lens to look through when observing the Bali Maharaj ordeal. This is Prabhupada's purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead sometimes puts a devotee to severe tests that are almost unbearable. One could hardly even live under the conditions forced upon Bali Maharaj. That Bali Maharaj endured all these severe tests and austerities is the mercy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord certainly appreciates the devotee's forbearance, and it is recorded for the future glorification of the devotee. This was not an ordinary test. As described in this verse, hardly anyone could survive such a test, but for the future glorification of Bali Maharaj, one of the Mahajans, the Supreme Personality of God had not only tested him, but also gave him the strength to tolerate such adversity. So I have underlined in bold letters. The Lord is so kind to his devotee that, when severely testing him, the Lord gives him the necessary strength to be tolerant and continue to remain a glorious devotee. Prabhupada's words. The get-back mentality that Dhruva had when he was insulted by his stepmother was not befitting. He got on the other side of it by the mercy of Narada and his dedication to be in his relationship with Lord Vishnu, and the controlling of his mind and senses for that objective. But he got on the other side of the material desire. But the cultivator of bhakti that we're being trained in, the followers of Rupa Goswami, is to leave aside other desires, although we have other desires. And sometimes there's an ordeal because we're attached to other desires, and they're taken from us. And that's what the ordeal is. It's not an ordeal if you don't have an attachment, like Jayadev. Not an ordeal. It's Krishna's mercy, or Krishna's mercy, or Krishna's mercy, or Krishna's mercy. If you're not on the platform of Jayadev, it's an ordeal. And what Bhaktisiddhanta is teaching is Krishna is merciful. And to such devotees that have attachment to Asat, he takes away that attachment to Asat, the attachment to nescience, to Maya, to being the enjoyer independently of Krishna, of something, of anything. Another nice reference, I find solace in Srimad Bhagavatam. So here we go. Grandfather Bhishma is also speaking in similar language as this Bali Maharaj purport. When the Pandavas came to the departing grandfather Bhishma, they were so sorrowful. Before the battle, how can we do this because he's our grandfather? Their father had died, and grandfather raised them like his own children. And now he's lying on a battlefield, dying. Sorrow. Yudhishthira, uncontrolled sorrow. Because of me. It wasn't because of him. It was Krishna's desire that the Kurukshetra battle happen. So they're filled with grief seeing grandfather Bhishma in this condition. And what does he do? He sees what great misfortune has come to your lives. You Pandavas and Kunti have been through such ordeal that an ordinary person could not survive. Same language. An ordinary person could not survive. But in each circumstance, Krishna came and rescued you because you're very dear to Krishna. So why is someone who's dear to Krishna, like the Pandavas, or maybe this Prabhu or that Prabhu yourself, put through an ordeal? Because you're dear to Krishna, so he shouldn't put you through an ordeal, right? Mentality thinks that and says that and feels that many times. So grandfather Bhishma gives very wise advice. He says, you can't understand the will of the Lord. Don't even try. Great personalities. Don't even try. Here's what you should do instead. You look within yourself and ask yourself, he doesn't use this language, but you ask yourself, have you deviated from the codes of theistic conduct? Number one. And when you're living the life of theistic conduct, are you under the guidance of how to do that from a qualified Brahmana or Vaishnava? And if you're living by theistic conduct and you're properly guided, are you doing those things for the pleasure of Krishna? If it's not strong enough in any one of those departments, you correct that. But if, in your case, Yudhishthira, you get an A in all of those, 4.0, you have a perfect score. So no cause for lamentation. Why things have played out the way they have played out, it's part of Krishna's plan, who can say? Accept Krishna's plan. But sometimes devotees, when accepting Krishna's plan, there's also something in service to Krishna that we're to do. So it's not just be, dull. In the mood of service to please Krishna, there may be an appropriate action for you in relation to the circumstance. Let's say, I know some devotees that have chronic health problems. That's an ordeal. Health problem is not fun. Chronic health problem, that's an ordeal. And so sometimes when you have health issues, you're supposed to do something, not just say, I accept Krishna's plan. Or supposing somebody is abusive. For me, that's a no-no. Just a little sharing. Since I was small, I never liked bullies. I never said, oh, Krishna's plan. But there were periods of time when I was belligerent, not like got in fights with them and something, but the right thing to do is, so when you're in situations that are difficult, exercise free will and make right choices that are appropriate for the circumstance. in the mood of serving and pleasing Krishna. We're not pacifists. We're not Christian scientists that says if there's an illness you don't go to a doctor, you pray to God. Well, we pray to God and we go to doctors because that's their gift from Krishna. That's for us, so we can serve Krishna nicely, and etc., etc. There may be other resources we can turn to or other actions we can take, but be sure when you take an action, check inside, and are you doing this for the pleasure of Krishna? Is it within the code of theistic conduct? Is it under the guidance of qualified Vaishnavas and Brahmanas? And is it being done for the pleasure of Krishna? Examine those before you act. And if you practice at that, it can happen more quickly than if you don't practice at it. If you don't practice at it, it's like a rusty gate. I've been in homes, and I have to tell the host, put oil in the hinges of your door, please. Because every time the next person comes in, just put oil in the door, please. 3-in-1, it doesn't cost much, and even a dodo like me can do that. I can show you how to do it. Just put some oil in the door hinge. So we may need to take some actions that are appropriate in service to a situation when somebody is mean-spirited. But don't do it in a retaliatory mood. That's what Narada advised to Dhruva. That's not Vaishnava. And we will have to be pleasing to Krishna kind of Vaishnavas. That's what a Vaishnava means. So take appropriate action in circumstances. And the intelligence, as well as the strength, because that's what Prabhupada is saying here, when the ordeal comes, the ordeal is coming from Krishna, and the intelligence what to do and the forbearance and strength to tolerate this also comes from Krishna. It makes it can serve to strengthen your Krishna connection, the ordeal itself. And that is detachment from asat and attachment to sat. Detachment from the sense of happiness is what the situation of duality looks like today. So now back to Bhakti Siddhanta, and I'm almost done. Now we're back in Dhaka. Punishment is to teach us. Ignorance is not accidental. That's this avidya or nescience. It is earned by our previous action. Man is the architect of his own fortune. Utilize the circumstance as best you can and try to see the grace, capital G, of the Absolute therein. The anomaly I am facing at this present time is the product of my own action. No one else is to blame. Not only is that true, but from another viewpoint it can also be seen that the grace of the Lord is always present everywhere, eager to help me, coming in the guise of an apparently unfavorable environment according to the vision of my present experience. That is the necessary medicine for my disease, the medicine to cure my madness. It is like medicine dispensed by the Lord. He is everywhere with his sympathetic hand extending to us in the circumstances of most intense danger. To have this attitude is to have the key, the solution that solves our unfavorable circumstances, our unfavorable position. The Lord is not vindictive. He does not want to punish us. Punishment has come only to teach us. The punishment is there, but coming from the affectionate hand to teach us, to improve us, to help us. We have to see all dangers like that. Set yourself right, not others, and real peace you will find. And never try to enjoy the results of your actions. This is the key to a successful life, and happiness will flow from that. You will find that the infinite is your friend. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says something quite similar. The Lord is very kind to his devotee, just like a loving father. Sometimes the loving father gives sweet milk, and sometimes the loving father will give nimba juice, something very bitter. Sometimes the father will give his warm embrace, and sometimes the father will scold. But the loving father doesn't give nimba juice and scolding from any place other than the same place as the others, out of a place of love. And when the child understands that, then when the scolding comes, the child knows it's for their best interest. Although some children don't think like that. They just want, and when they're told no, they let the mother or father know. They didn't like that restriction, or the scolding, the reprimand, or the bitter nimba juice. So there may be some things that come unpleasant from our perspective. Not only sometimes, but it happens in this world. Now, when it becomes really extreme, like the fire ordeal. I was just in California, and I asked Suvas, why so many fires in California? Have they any, like, an explanation why? And there's no apparent, like, really clear explanation why. In California, in the winter, there's rain for 4 months, and then the rest of the 8 months, there's no rain. Dry. And then somebody's careless. They throw a lit cigarette. And then there's wind. Or this last one was, they called it a campfire because that's how it was started. Somebody had a campfire and they were careless. Some sparks went in the air, caught in the trees because the wind blew the sparks, and they caught in the trees, and Suvas kept saying it, because he had a friend that is a firefighter, and the flames like this, 30 feet in the air. So I told Suvas, have you ever been near a forest fire? He said, no. I said, I have. I'm just sharing with you. I grew up in upstate New York, and one of the things that my parents liked to do in the fall season, it's kind of like, a nice thing to do, go for a drive in the mountains in the fall season and see all the beautiful colors. It's like, it's awesome. It's, things that people do. So one day, it was in the afternoon, maybe 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and as we were driving, it was a fall afternoon, so it was kind of like, not Chicago weather. It was, not summer, but not winter yet, so it was like mild. And then we felt this heat wave. What's that? And as we were going, because it was tree-lined road, we went around and around a few curves, and then over in some distance, there was a fire on the side of a mountain. And it looked like this, and it was some miles away. And we just did a U-turn and went back, because it was very dangerous. One devotee in California, when I was there, said in the place where he lived, there were multiple deaths of people caught in cars and they burned alive in the cars. And I said, what were they sitting in their cars for when there's fire coming? The answer is, just move so fast. They were trying to drive and the fire was moving faster than their car. And they got burned alive in the car. Very dangerous. So when the fire of ordeal comes, when you're in the middle of it or you're approaching it, it can be very fearful. You better be careful. Don't be inattentive when ordeal comes. But when you're being careful, be spiritually careful that you don't forget Krishna. Take it as an opportunity to help you become purged from the root of material existence. It's part of Krishna's kindness, although it doesn't look like it. It doesn't feel like it. It feels like ordeal. It feels like getting burned alive in a car is not fun, etc. But danger comes. It's the nature of the place. That's Bhaktisiddhanta's teaching. It's our experience. It's the place of duality. And it can be really, really extreme. A nice book to read for extreme is Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. I speak about it when I'm asked to teach a stress management course or seminar. Viktor Frankl. A little skinny book. He was a Jewish psychiatrist in a Nazi concentration camp during World War II and survived, and wrote the book afterwards of how to deal with circumstances we're never likely going to have to experience. Being in a Nazi concentration camp and you're a Jewish man, you don't know what's going to happen next. You're expecting the worst. So one of his points is there are circumstances in life that are beyond your control. There's nothing you can do about the circumstance. It's winter and it's Chicago. It's not going to be Southern California in the winter. It's going to be cold in the winter. So now you can choose to move out of Chicago, but you can choose to not whine and complain about the cold of Chicago. You can do the needful. When circumstance comes that's beyond your control, so it doesn't have to be, climate, it can be events, circumstances of life, people or something, and it's beyond your control. There's nothing you can do. Then you can't be deprived. His point is you can't be deprived of your free will choice. How are you going to address yourself to that? There's a freedom that's yours. And no one can take it. Even Krishna won't take it from you. What to speak of another person or the circumstance. It's a power that's yours. It's you. So choose wisely, specifically according to theistic conduct, under proper guidance, and for the pleasure of Krishna. And be happy living your life that way. And as Bhaktisiddhanta says, then you'll be in harmony with the image of the Absolute. You'll come to know who Krishna really is, that he's really kind. And our primary shelter for that consciousness is the gift of Lord Chaitanya, the chanting of the holy name, delivered very mercifully to us by our founder Acharya. Any discussion, comments? Jivana Jivana?
Maharaj, I have two questions. So the first question, is it accurate to say that the internal introspection of the nescience or the evil desire that Krishna may be addressing through a fire of ordeal is more important than how we address ourselves to the situation with the three principles that you mentioned, under theistic conduct, under the guidance of a proper Brahmana, Vaishnava, and for the pleasure of Krishna?
Well, in one sense, yes, but in another sense, no, because until our consciousness is purified, we will not be able to discern what it is. What's that nescience that we're attached to? Because we're attached to. More important, in another, yes, but more important is how are we going to get that intelligence, that discernment? Just take it for granted. I don't know what it is, but I know it's something. Now what am I going to do to get to the knowledge of what it is? Kind of like, how did I get covered by Maya? When you're covered by Maya, you're not going to be able to discern. But when you're freed from the covering of Maya, then, Prabhupada writes, then you can easily understand. So, Mai Chananya Yogena Bhakti Rabhya Vicharini, that's foremost. We discussed this morning. I will not budge an inch from pleasing Krishna. And when it will be pleasing to Krishna, I need to receive some guidance, and I need to know what Scripture says and live accordingly. That's what I need to do. The introspection is a subset of that one, but it's not necessarily first and foremost.
So you presented, you shared the phrase from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that said that we should not desire anything but the highest good for our worst enemy. And prior to that, just before that, you said, sometimes others cause us difficulty. And not just us, but to people who are dear to us.
Yes.
And then you quoted that.
Yes.
So I was wondering, thinking about my circumstances, as well as scripture, like the example we see in Lord Shiva, when his wife was felt insulted, she burned herself up, and he reacted in a very strong way.
Sure did.
Then I thought of Jamadagni in Parashuram, when Jamadagni was chopped first his cow was stolen, and then his head was chopped off. And in both cases, Parashuram, because he was so, his father was very dear to him, and he responded in very severe ways.
He sure did.
So, in both of those circumstances in scripture, because they're exalted personalities, and in one case the personality of God himself, were they wishing the highest good for those who they had dealt with in such a severe way?
What was specifically with Parashuram, his was the performance of a Leela, and to set the stage for many things. To purge the earth of demoniac kings, and to drive from the land of India others, so they fled. So it was my understanding is that that test was not a test to hold him up to, because it was a Leela. And I certainly haven't given much thought to the nature of the question. Was it the highest good? Because those that killed, they were liberated. That's the highest good. And instead of continuing to perpetuate dharma. But it's part of a grander Leela of the Supreme Lord. And with Daksha getting Lord Shiva's response the way that he did, it wasn't the highest good because that tendency continued into his next birth. The highest good is you go back to Godhead. That's not what happened.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, you took the example of Bali Maharaj on ordeal. I have two point of views. One is Gajendra caught under crocodiles, yet was able to express with its tongue, but to offer a flower to Vishnu.
Okay.
Whereas Bali Maharaj had nothing else just to tolerate. So, in my circumstances also I have observed there are two different ordeals I observed where
That you go through.
you go through.
Okay.
One is there's nothing much I can do, just tolerate. The other is you can do a little bit offering. And I'm trying to relate this to the point you mentioned that you conduct yourself in a theistic way. Theistic conduct. Theistic conduct.
Theistic conduct, okay.
Could you please express in these two varieties how what one would...
Well, even when there are circumstances outside of your control, you can still make offerings to the Lord. Even if your limbs are cut off, you can, from your heart, make offerings to the Lord. So that you're not deprived because of circumstances to do that. That's a choice that you have, that you're not going to be deprived of by circumstance. So I don't see the distinction. I think it's a false dilemma. You can always do that.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Maharaj, you mentioned about bullies.
Yes, I did.
One option is, I'm pointing towards Srimad Bhagavatam, to getting insulted. Dhruva reacted in such a way, I want a kingdom bigger than my dad.
Yeah.
But as you recommended, that's not our direction.
Keep going.
We have to consult or take appropriate steps when you're placed under that circumstantial. So, if this training was not given early,
learn it when you get it.
Definitely we choose the...
No, you don't. No.
By the time we get to know it, it's already too late.
No. You have association of devotees. And in the association of devotees you'll learn. Better late than never. Right? Lots of things we learn as we're devotees. And we take shelter of the devotees and what we learn from the devotees and live our lives. We shift the perspective that we're looking at life from in the association of devotees. Great resource. Something else? Way in the back. Way in the back. Way in the back, yeah. Then you're next.
Guru Maharaj, this question is from the afternoon address, the Vyasa Puja address.
Something from yesterday?
No, today, Vyasa Puja address. So you're mentioning about resolute intelligence. So I was evaluating internally, like in my life, I had made certain decisions of doing some services in a very conscientious way. But over the time, as services increased, I feel my intelligence is played out. It's like in so many, lost in the details. So
your intelligence has been diversified and what?
Splayed out.
Splayed out, okay.
And feels like I get lost in the details of the
Lost
services.
in the details.
So it seems like withdrawing from those services and taking on less doesn't feel right, because each task or each service was taken for a meaningful reason. But I then also feel that, or maybe I do not understand what does it mean to have resolute intelligence, you know, when one is handling variety of things in one's life and maybe kind of overloaded or feel overloaded. So I'm trying to understand the gap between intention of...
Well, I think I understand your question. And if I'll respond, and if I don't address your question, I'm sure you'll let me know. Okay. Resolute intelligence, or vyavasayatmika buddhi, is something that Krishna gives. And he gives it to one who wants his pleasure. So when you want his pleasure, you may have a narrow range of services, you may have a medium, you may have a broad, and it may change over a period of time. But whether it's narrow, medium, or broad range of services, the intelligence is one. The intelligence is Krishna is to be pleased. That's resolute intelligence. Krishna is to be pleased. So if that gets fuzzy, then splayed out intelligence says, if I do this and do it nicely, it becomes jaded with material colors. Karmatmaka yena sharira bandha, in Rishabdev's language. The mind becomes the ruler, and the mind becomes colored by the modes of nature, and you don't see things with that Krishna is to be pleased intelligence, whether it's narrow, medium, or broad range. So that's why, then what to do? Different things could be done. Chant better japa. Read more, and read more carefully, with the purpose of, I want to be strongly connected to Krishna, and this is a means to become strongly connected to Krishna. With that intention, you read. Just do the core devotional activities with better quality, and Krishna may then restore your buddhi, vyavasayatmika buddhi, and then whether it's the same range or the lesser range, you'll have it again. There's another thing that sometimes is good to do. You take some steps back and you consolidate. Let me do a fewer set of things with a lot of focus and attention in pleasing Krishna. But what happens is, history repeats itself, the diversity starts to expand again. Because we have our natures. And we like and we engage in, so stay with, it may be necessary to take some steps back and regather your strength and refocus your sense of purpose and then go forward again. So that's wise and sometimes needed sometimes. You do a pause and step back. That's fine. For the purpose of refocusing on Krishna's pleasure is the real purpose. That's vyavasayatmika buddhi. So bhakti means activities, the senses engaging in the object of the senses for the pleasure of Krishna. And the other is The mind is upon Krishna. So there has to be intelligence that guides the activities in the mind. That's buddhi. So bhakti and buddhi go together. Or say, bhakti without buddhi is splayed out. It's not do less and you're more splayed in. You're more focused. Not necessarily. And do more is not necessarily splayed out. It's what your focus is. And that's guided, Krishna gives it. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami bodhi yogam tam. So you do the first part, you get the second part. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami bodhi yogam tam. That's what you do. You go revisit the first half and then you get the second half. Because Krishna is kind. He wants to give it. But he's not going to interfere if you get distracted. Or become complacent. Or become more absorbed in doership and less absorbed in Krishna's to be pleased. It's real easy. Doership. Pleasing Krishna, that's, Okay? Okay. Okay. Are you ready? Eye contact. You got to turn the speaker on. You're on? Okay.
For the class, thank you so much for the class.
Okay.
I feel like I'll be listening to it a lot over the year.
Okay.
When devotees go through really scarring experiences with other devotees, in whether it's like relationships or friendships or anything like that,
Yeah.
the phrase that I've heard most commonly said is that I forgive them, but I won't forget that instance.
You want to do what?
That I'll forgive, but I won't forget. And so that's like a really meaningful, important first step to take. But how do you progress from there to get to the point of full forgiveness of that person or situation or anything?
Krishna consciousness. Purity. There's no substitute for purity. So you have to work towards purity to get purity. And you have to make your effort and you rely on Krishna's kindness to get it. And so keep sadhu sangha strong in your life. And the sadhu sangha mercy is that the purity that they're carrying can become yours. So find such sadhus in your life and keep close association with those sadhus in your life. And continue to desire a heart that's pure in their association. And that means also, it's all the other things, the things that you do, the chanting and the reading and the rising and the cleaning and the forgiving and, the things that you do. But keep going.
Are there any exercises? Because like when I speak to other devotees about this, or like what they're going through, and they tell me like sometimes I feel like I should help them in some way, but I don't know how, how to help them get there.
One of the things not to do, one of our devotees in the audience knows very well, is don't get into rescuer consciousness. That's a doership consciousness. I got to rescue them. I got to carry them. I got to, I got to fix their problem. Then you own the problem. But you don't own the problem. It's Maya. So, be their well-wisher and choose according, you know, then it becomes you make some free will choices of what can be beneficial. You know, sometimes being beneficial is just to be the person's friend. You have to fix their problem. They're lonely. You don't have to fix their problem. Just be their friend. And be their friend doesn't mean you go fix the problem. Just be their friend. And you know, whatever that means to you and whatever it means to them, be their friend. Show love and affection. Cook prasadam for them. Hug them, you know. Be their friend. You can't, you may not be able to fix the problem. Or do anything. We pray to Krishna. There may be some practical things you can do also. Maybe not. Doesn't mean you don't care anymore because you didn't go and fix their problem. It means you're Krishna conscious. You're not thinking, I'm the doer. I'm the rescuer. That's this, you know, that was the first evening's class, that do unto others. Right? If there's something practical, appropriate, you can do that. Here we go. Another question. Who's our... Put your hand up again, Amara.
So, Guru Maharaj, it is related to the details of the services, following Atulya Mataji's question. So, I wish to do services very nicely, very detail-oriented, in a very proper way, but I don't feel many times that I have enough capacity, given the...
You don't have what?
Enough capacity.
Capacity,
okay.
Okay.
With regard to time or with regard to the amount of services I have. So that also feels like an ordeal to me, because I am never satisfied with what I am able to offer. So
this is a common question that you ask. I've heard this one before from you.
yes.
It's something you struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
So now, punchline is?
So how can I just be satisfied with whatever I'm able to offer and not feel that it is not properly, details have not been properly taken care or something? Sorry, I'm not able to properly...
I get it. We've been there. It's not an unfamiliar question from you. Yeah. And you're still struggling with it. Take the microphone from her. Let's step back from your question and go to another place. When there's something that happens again, it's recurring. The circumstance may change, but the phenomena is happening again and again. So when it's happening again and again, that's a signal. This is important. I need to learn something about myself and my relationship with Krishna from this. So look inside, and what is it that I'm struggling with? What's the struggle? If the intention is to please Krishna, that's what's pleasing to Krishna. The details are not as pleasing to Krishna as the intention to please Krishna is. And if your intention is to please Krishna, he'll give you the ability. He's the source of the ability. False ego thinks otherwise. I'm the source. I have to go get this resource, that resource, and then it's pleasing to Krishna. It's false ego. It's not you. Krishna's the ability. It's not you. You don't own the ability. Krishna does. You offer to Krishna what you have, with the intention to please him. Now, put that in the priority position, and then feel yourself dependent upon Krishna for the details. Not dependent upon yourself for the details, because that's a false ego hook or coloration of the mind. You're hooked to the material energy through that. Or the mind becomes colored. Look up the verse, Karmatmaka yena sharira bandha. Rishabhadev's teachings, Canto 5, in the beginning part. Karmatmakam yena sharira bandha. The mind is observing your service and seeing with some coloration. You know, the doership coloration, the mode of passion. You're dependent. That's reality. And you can only serve with what Krishna gives you. And that's reality. You want to please Krishna, so you're dependent upon Krishna. Turn that to Krishna. I'm dependent upon you. I want to please you. Here's a little story that to me says the same thing in the story form. One time I was visiting a place that I was going there once a year, and it was one of those international arrival situations where you come in at like some unwholesome hour, you know, early in the morning, and having a night flight, and you know. So they got picked up at the airport, went to the home where I was staying, and there was a few families, and one little girl was very eager to do some service. So because when I arrived, it was early in the morning, I wanted to go take a shower. Took a shower, was putting on my dhoti, knock on the door, and the door opens, so I'm still putting on my dhoti. The little girl comes in and gives me a gift. She couldn't wait till I put my dhoti on. And it was a necklace made of colored beads of different colors and different sizes. And you know, she was just so enthusiastic, she couldn't wait. She burst in the door and brought this necklace. I don't wear necklaces. But I haven't forgotten it to this day. Because it was the love with which she was offering that thing, not the detail. It was lovely. And I'll never forget the gesture, never forget the little girl. I'm sure she's now grown up. So, yes, details are important. But far more important is the love with which, and the mood of affection with which you offer what you have to offer. And Krishna will give you the ability. Do it better, and do it better, and do it better, and do it better, and do it better. Easily he can decorate you with those things. So let go of it's not a time management issue exactly. It's a doership mentality, as far as I can see. And then, you know, so time management always has to be there, and refine it and improve and so forth. Don't become complacent, but stay with it, manage your time wisely, every day. And Krishna will give that ability too. He'll give you reminders when you're dilly-dallying over here too much with something and you're not staying focused on what... Anyway, he's the intelligence, buddhi. Okay? Okay, I'm going to end because of our time. And there's one remaining thing for this evening. And it's a little video. Ready? We'll see. Okay, so we got a little Vamsidhari device. Na 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 na. So, he likes service and we're depriving him of service. We're not his real well-wisher after all. So, this is the Jagannath Puri Yatra video little message. For 25, 30 years I haven't stopped to count. I've been, one of the services that I have been doing and like doing for the devotees is take groups of devotees to the holy places. And it's been a lovely experience, and then sometimes we have to go when the kids can go. That's, Christmas time, Christmas vacation, we have a youth yatra. We visited Puri, Mayapur, and Vrindavan. And sometimes we wanted to go to South India, and it's not good to go during Kartik time because it can rain and so forth, so we went in the winter. But we went to a number of places last couple of years, Dwarka and, Ayodhya and Chitrakoot, over a period of time, for people that can't go, there's this service to the people that can't go in the form of having a video of the places we visited and so forth. So this past one, it took a lot to get everything in order. So, Kartik time has been over for quite a while, but it took quite a while to process everything because the lighting and without all the technical difficulties. Compliments of Prahlad Nrsimha. He fixed a lot of the things that were not so good with that. And I have a whole bag, I have 150 of them in a bag here to give them out. And just a few things, what's in there is there's photos of deities in places where you're not supposed to take photos of the deities. There was a system that I won't tell you. But we have photos of deities that they don't even sell the photographs, but we have them. And then another very nice thing, you saw a little presentation by Braja in Chinese reciting a poem. There's a little section that's the Chinese, the devotees that gave feedback from this yatra, what was the best part? There were two top responses. Taking darshan of Lord Jagannath every day, because we were staying primarily in Puri. So some of us couldn't go, but many people, it was their favorite. Darshan of Jagannath every day. Then the other was the Chinese devotees, and what they did. They were given maybe 2.5 hours. There were 35 devotees from China that came, and they had time to showcase Chinese culture and Krishna consciousness, whatever they wanted to do. And so you'll see in this little promotional video of, in China, Chaitanya Charitamrita is not available in Chinese. But in Chinese, they did the whole Shakshi Gopal Leela. In Chinese. Note, the people in the audience couldn't understand what they're saying, except we know the story, and so we can know what they were saying in Chinese. It was really lovely. And then one Mataji, she doesn't have professional training, but she likes singing, so she sang a song in Chinese to traditional Chinese music, but about Krishna. And with some choreography going on in the background, and the water, and going to see Krishna, like mudras to show, to say what the words were. And then somebody reciting in English, and then they went back to the song. And there's another devotee that does have professional training before she was a devotee, Tungavidya, and I knew what was going to happen. She was sitting down, because I've been there, I've watched what she does. She's magic. Before too long, it was like somebody playing a traditional Chinese melody on the harmonium, and she was singing and then gesturing with her hands, and then she had everybody with their hands, and then it was this, and then she stood up, and then everybody stood up, and she got everybody dancing. She's just like, she's an amazing personality, and the whole room was dancing. Traditional Chinese melody, singing Hare Krishna, etc. So very moving. Not just for me, it was moving for the people who said that was very special out of the whole experience. So that's in the video that we're going to be handing out. So just by facing your feet in this holy place, one has fulfilled or achieved the benefit of visiting all the holy places in all of existence. If someone even takes one breath, go ahead. In Purushottam, etc., he will attain the results of an entire Ashwamedha Yajna. Keep breathing, Prabhus. Lord Chaitanya is in this mood of ecstasy. Oh, Jagannath! Tears streaming from his eyes. Ecstatic mood. Oh, Nilachandana! Crying. Sakshi Gopal touched me very, very deeply. What was really inspiring about Sri Chaitanya Prabhu as a person is his very loving exchanges with his devotees. It's really amazing to, when you were describing all the different personalities that lived here. Yes, this part and very touched on my heart. In any circumstances, we
always remember those teachings. All about the Acharya's passed on just affected me. It's worth it just for this one day that I got to spend here. It was like incredible.
Very mysterious concert recording. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. I played the wrong promotion video. That was the old version that Prahlad redid altogether, so we'll show it tomorrow for those of you that are still here. But it gives you an idea. So, Vibhu Chaitanya, where are you? Okay. What do you want? He's been behind the scenes in this whole, production thing. What would you like? What's next? Come forward.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Guru Maharaj has a wonderful inventory of flash drives with him. He will be mercifully distributing it. You can come and collect it from the lotus hands of Guru Maharaj. And I will be here and a couple of other devotees will be here. You can come and then each flash drive is $50 donation. You can come and give it. You can pay by check or cash or credit card. Thank you.
And if you don't have, you can have any way, or you can pay your...
His Holiness Romapada Swami Maharaj ki jai.